In this video, I'm going to show you the best birth signs to pick for your build in the Elder Scrolls Oblivion. I'm also going to highlight some of the ones to avoid, as well as explaining some of the more situational or niche birth signs that could work for certain playstyles. Before we get into the specific birth signs, you're probably wondering why birth signs are even important in the first place. Well, the main reason is that they offer a powerful boost to your character that can make things much smoother, especially in the early stages of the game. For example, the warrior birth sign combined with the Redguard race gives an enormous boost to your strength and endurance, making your warrior build far stronger out of the gate than if you'd used, for example, the Apprentice birth sign and the Ultima race. In this particular example, this isn't just a small difference, it's massive. It's going to be immediately noticeable, especially in the early stages of the game, and it's arguably essential if you want to play at higher difficulty settings. So with that in mind, let's start by covering the birth signs that you're going to want to avoid. First on this list is the Tower, which is probably the worst birth sign in the game. It allows you to open one average difficulty lock per day, as well as providing a minor damage reflection spell that can also only be used once per day. Now, average locks are trivially easy to pick, and you're likely to come across multiple locks per day, so it really doesn't feel like much of a convenience feature to instantly unlock one. And 5% damage reflection for 120 seconds is so minor that it barely feels like you've used it, as you can see from the current footage on screen. Honestly, I really can't see any reason to pick the Tower over the other birth signs, and that even includes the other bad ones. Speaking of which, the Serpent is another birth sign that you should probably look to avoid. It offers you a spell that simultaneously puts a minor damage over time effect on the enemy, as well as curing you of poison and dispelling any magic effects on you. This spell can only be cast once per day, and it's going to cost you 100 fatigue. It's not that it's necessarily a bad spell, but it's very low impact for something you can only use once per day, especially given that it's the only benefit you get for picking the Serpent birth sign. If it was spammable, maybe the Serpent would make its way into the situational or niche build category, but it isn't, so it can't really be justified as anything but one of the worst choices available. Next up we have the Shadow, which allows you to cast a spell once per day that gives you 60 seconds of invisibility. On paper, this doesn't sound bad at all. There are a wide range of use cases in which invisibility can be useful. These range from making stealth missions trivial to escaping particularly dicey combat situations. However, there's an item you can acquire pretty early on in the game called the Joan Stone, if that's how it's even pronounced. But anyway, this stone gives you a greater power that actually offers 120 seconds of invisibility, as well as a number of other benefits. This makes the Shadow pretty much redundant unless you feel you need a full 3 minutes of invisibility for some reason. So while it's not a bad power, basically it's always going to be better to take the benefits of another birth sign and use the stone to deal with your invisibility needs. Moving on to the Ritual, which in my opinion probably gets the title of Best of the Worst. Firstly, it offers you the ability to turn undead, making them run away from you for 30 seconds, and that can be used multiple times per day. This could potentially be useful at harder difficulties for certain undead heavy areas, such as Sancretor. Secondly, the Ritual also offers a 200 point heal that can be used once per day, which is a very strong heal and it can get you out of certain death situations. However, the reason that I don't really rate the Ritual is that the Turn Undead ability is very situational, and the Lord birth sign offers, in my opinion, a better heal, in the sense that it's a weaker heal but it isn't limited to one use per day. So in this way it offers a constant benefit throughout your gameplay. So whilst the Ritual certainly isn't in the same sort of category as the Tower for just being flat out bad, I just can't see any reason to pick it over the other choices available. Moving on to what can be considered the best birth signs for the vast majority of situations, and therefore the best choices for the majority of players. First up in this category is the Atronach, an overall solid birth sign that trades out your standard magicka regeneration for an additional 150 points of overall magicka, as well as a 50% chance to absorb the magicka of any spell cast on you, not only topping up your magicka, but also completely negating the damaging effects of that spell. This makes the Atronach incredibly powerful for going up against enemy spellcasters. It does become weaker against non-spellcasting enemies though if you're using a spellcasting build yourself, as your magicka regen is going to be very weak. That being said, you still have a larger magicka pool due to the 150 point bonus, and this will allow you to cast a decent number of spells before running dry. And you can also supplement this to some extent with potions. Overall, it's a top tier choice, and it's a particularly strong birth sign for more defensive magicka based playstyles, rather than builds that spam destruction magic and go through mana extremely quickly. But we'll get on to some birth signs that work well for that playstyle too. Another very strong birth sign is the Warrior, which provides a simple offering of a 10 point bonus to both your strength and endurance. Strength increases your maximum fatigue and carry capacity, as well as increasing your melee damage, and endurance increases your maximum fatigue and health, which makes strength and endurance two of the most powerful stats in the game. There isn't actually a huge amount to say on the Warrior aside from it just makes any melee build significantly more powerful from day one. It's useful in every situation, it doesn't require any active thought, you just select it for an instant power boost and play the game. As I mentioned in the introduction, combining the Warrior birth sign with a race such as Redguard that gives similar bonuses will make a night and day difference to your character's power level from the moment you select them. The Thief is very similar to the Warrior in the sense that it simply provides a boost to your attributes, and in this case you gain 10 points to agility, speed and luck. Agility increases your maximum fatigue and your ranged weapon damage, as well as reducing your chance to be staggered in combat. Speed increases your movement speed and jump distance, and luck positively modifies the values of most skills in the game. This combination makes the Thief birth sign an obvious choice for the famous stealth archer build. If you pair the Thief with a race choice such as Dunmer or Bosmer, this is going to make for an incredibly strong stealth archer right out of the gate. If you're more interested in a stealth dagger build, then the Thief is still a decent choice. However, the blade skill is governed by strength, so you may want to weigh up the benefits of picking the Warrior birth sign for the melee stealth builds as well. Next up we have the Mage, potentially the most simple birth sign of all. It basically just increases your magicka pool by 50 points, allowing you to cast more spells before you run out of magicka, making the Mage a solid choice for anyone wanting to play as any form of spellcaster. The obvious question is probably, why would you bother with this when the Atronach actually gives you 150 points of additional magicka? Well, it's because there's no downside to the Mage. You simply get a decent chunk of extra magicka without losing your magicka regeneration, or having to rely on being hit by spells to get any kind of regen at all. It's just a safe and solid choice for any magic-based build. Your alternative as a spellcaster for a simple but effective birth sign is the Lady, which much like the Warrior and Thief offers a flat boost to some of your attributes. In the case of the Lady, you get plus 10 willpower and endurance. Willpower increases your maximum fatigue as well as your magicka regen, and endurance increases your maximum fatigue and health. Basically, if you're planning to end fights quickly, the Mage is a better choice for a bigger magicka pool. But if you're playing at higher difficulties and expect fights to last longer, then the Lady may be a better option due to the enhanced magicka regen. Either birth sign is solid for a no-fuss spellcaster build. However, if you want to try something that's a little more high risk, high reward, then you could also consider the Apprentice, which we'll get onto shortly. So now that we've covered the best birth signs for most situations, let's very quickly look at some of the more interesting situational choices. Let's start with the Lover, which overall is a pretty lackluster birth sign as all it gives is a single spell that paralyzes an enemy for 10 seconds. However, it just about scrapes its way into the niche birth signs rather than the worst birth signs, as paralyzing a strong enemy for 10 seconds can trivialize a fight, which can be particularly useful at higher difficulty settings. However, overall I'd still consider the Lover to be one of the weaker birth signs. The Steed is similar. It offers a 20 point bonus to speed, which isn't particularly relevant for most playthroughs, especially given that any character can easily increase their speed by literally just running around and gaining athletic skill. However, it does have a niche in speedrunning, so I can't really put it in the worst birth sign section when it's consistently used in record-breaking speedruns. But yeah, it's not particularly relevant to 99.9% of players. Next up we have the Lord, which offers a spammable heal over time ability, making it in my opinion far more useful than the once a day heal provided by the Ritual Birthsign. This heal ability makes the Lord a strong choice for high survivability builds, for example a heavy armour sword and shield build. You could then pair this with restoration spells to turn your character into an absolute tank. Though be warned that the Lord also gives you a 25% weakness to fire damage, which you will definitely notice in Oblivion Gates, especially at higher difficulties. Last but not least, we have the Apprentice. The Apprentice Birthsign offers a 100 point boost to your Magicka. This gives it a larger overall Magicka pool than the Mage, and while it's smaller than the Atronach's 150 point boost, you don't have to take the substantial downside of losing your Magicka regen, and therefore inevitably running out of Magicka during longer fights at high difficulty, even when supplementing with mana potions. This balance actually makes the Apprentice the best overall birthsign for spell damage output. However, it does come with a massive downside of a 100% weakness to magic. Because of this, it's definitely not one for beginners, on the basis that you're likely going to get clapped against spellcasters if you haven't put other mitigations in place. However, it is a fun choice for a glass cannon build, and therefore it occupies a strong niche for more experienced players. And that's pretty much it. Hopefully this video has been useful in helping you select the right birthsign for your build. I have plenty more Oblivion guides on my channel as well as other games, so if that sounds interesting to you, then maybe consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one.